A couple of weeks ago, while I was at work, I received a call from my mom. She informed me that my grandfather had suffered a fall in his kitchen, and Uncle Mark was already with him in the ambulance. The paramedics suspected a heart attack and a cut on his foot. Even though he was sedated, he remained responsive and seemed fine, despite the injuries. When I offered to go to the hospital, my mom advised, "Hold off on leaving work. I'll update you once I have more information." So, I patiently waited. I found myself at work, eagerly anticipating updates. The call eventually reached me long after I had returned home and was preparing for bed. Grandpa was awake and in good spirits, although surgery for the heart condition was unavoidable, and his foot injury had been treated. I promised him a visit once he was discharged. A week after returning home from the hospital, where he successfully underwent surgery for a heart condition, Grandpa found himself grappling with a troublesome foot infection. Confined to his bed, I was finally given the green light to visit. However, the optimism I had felt vanished when each call to Mom yielded new excuses. Worries about infection, the flu season, or just sheer exhaustion. The last time I attempted to visit, Uncle Mark met me at the door, stating that it wasn't a convenient time. On Grandpa's 90th birthday, I decided it was time to confront the situation. Upon arriving at the house, I immediately noticed all the blinds tightly closed on what should have been a warm summer's day. My knocks went unanswered. The unease within me deepened as I tried the handle, only to find it resistant, confirming that the door was securely locked. Perhaps Grandpa had gone for a follow-up appointment related to his surgery, though it puzzled me how he could have gotten there when both cars were parked in the driveway. Determined to find out, I knocked again, this time louder. The door finally opened a crack, and an unpleasant stench wafted out, nearly choking me. "Uncle Mark," I exclaimed when his face appeared. "What's that awful smell?" Acknowledging it was just me, he opened the door a bit more. "The recovery is really taking a turn for the worse," he said quietly, "but we're keeping a close eye on it as best we can. You can come in, just give us a minute." I entered the hallway, and the smell seemed worse inside. "Is it necessary to call for an ambulance?" I questioned in a panic, retrieving my cell phone from my pocket. No, Chris," Uncle Mark quickly reassured me. "Everything's in hand. I dropped by and collected his post-surgery medications earlier, and we've been coordinating with his surgeon." Relieved, I took a deep breath, but the overpowering smell persisted. "Uncle Mark, that stench is unbearable. Can't we just open the windows?" "We gave it a shot," Uncle Mark explained as Mom emerged from Grandpa's room. "But he started shivering, didn't he, Cindy?" Mom shrugged and stayed still. "Can I go in and say hi to him then?" I inquired, trying to peer over her shoulder into the dimly lit house. I hesitated to enter due to the unpleasant odor, but if Grandpa wasn't faring well, I felt the need to check on him. "I don't think it's wise," she whispered. "Why not?" I persisted, my concern growing. Uncle Mark had already gone off to handle something elsewhere in the house, and the curiosity to see Grandpa was getting the better of me. Mom's eyes widened, and she stepped in my way, blocking the path to Grandpa's room. "He's resting, and it's not a good time. Uncle Mark is taking care of things, and we don't need any disruptions. But I just want to make sure he's okay." "He's fine," she insisted, her tone growing firmer. "You coming in will only disturb him. At least let me see him and give him his birthday present." Mom looked down to see the wrapped gift in my hands and sighed. "Of course, darling, I'm sorry," she said. "We've just been so preoccupied. I'm sure he'll love it." At that moment, Uncle Mark returned from handling things elsewhere in the house, his expression stern. "You shouldn't be letting the boy in there, Cindy. It's not good for Dad," he remarked disapprovingly. I exchanged a puzzled glance with Mom, who, despite agreeing to let me into the room, appeared nervously fidgety now. It was an odd reaction that left me uneasy. Nevertheless, I followed Uncle Mark down the hall. As he opened the door to Grandpa's room, his demeanor shifted. "Dad, someone's dropped by to wish you a happy birthday. The thing you have to know about Uncle Mark is, he's been a control freak throughout Mom's entire life. I recall her sharing with me that even when she was pregnant with me, Uncle Mark believed she was making the worst mistake of her life. The only reason he's still around is because Grandpa is alive. Otherwise, we would have parted ways with Uncle Mark a long time ago." The discord between Uncle Mark's words and tone left me perplexed, amplifying the mysterious tension that surrounded Grandpa's room. He shifted slightly in my direction, revealing Grandpa's frail form propped up against a cluster of pillows. I will attempt to articulate the horror I witnessed, but I'm aware that words can never truly capture it. My stomach churned, and I found myself paralyzed in shock. Grandpa's pallid, vacant gaze seemed fixed on the window, while his jaw dangled open, exposing slackened lips and a gray fuzz coated his tongue. Uncle Mark reached for a tissue from the Kleenex box on the nightstand. Gently, he dabbed at the corners of Grandpa's mouth, mentioning, "He's got some secretions at the back of his throat, probably due to a cold. Don't he, Cindy?" He glanced over at Mom, who stood quietly by the door, still as can be. Uncle Mark continued, "He hasn't been talking much due to this." I glanced over at Grandpa, his silence adding to the unsettling atmosphere in the room. Suddenly, my attention was drawn to a fly, and then another, until I looked up and noticed a swarm on the wall above Grandpa's bed. One landed on Mom's arm, prompting her to reach for the fly swatter as others buzzed around her. Stupid goddamn flies. So many of the horrid things. "I think I'll get the Hoover and get 'em that way," Mom exclaimed in frustration. Uncle Mark quickly intervened. "The Hoover will wake Dad up. We don't want to disturb him, especially if he's not feeling well." One of the flies circled Grandpa's face, daring to land in his open mouth. Uncle Mark swiftly shooed it away. The sight was so gross, I thought. My knees began to shake, and I could barely resist the urge to back out of the room. I reached for the wall, pressing myself against it as vomit crept up the back of my throat. "Chris, I'm sorry," Mom said, extending her hand toward me. "This is precisely why I didn't want you to come over. The smell is hard to tolerate, and I didn't want you to have to see him like this. A heart attack doesn't make you smell this way, Mom, unless he had another." "You should have told me he passed away," I said, frustration and confusion tainting my voice. Mom's eyes flickered with unease, but she remained firm. "Chris, he's not gone. We're doing our best to take care of him here. It's a challenging situation, but he's still with us." I shook my head, the reality of the situation sinking in. "Mom, this goes beyond a heart attack. I saw flies, and the stench. It's not right. You can't just keep me in the dark about Grandpa's condition." Mom sighed, her shoulders slumping. "I didn't want you to worry, Chris. We're doing everything we can for him. The doctor said it's a slow recovery process, and we're trying our best to make him comfortable." A mixture of frustration and concern welled up within me. "Mom, I need to know the truth. What's really happening with Grandpa? Why is it so different from what you're telling me?" Mom took a deep breath, her eyes pleading with me. "Chris, your sister Nicole is on her way round with a birthday cake. You need to stop being a stubborn brat and help Grandpa celebrate his 90th birthday. It's important to him, and he needs his family around." I felt a surge of frustration. "Mom, I can't just pretend everything's normal. Something is seriously wrong in there." Unable to contain my disbelief, I stormed out of the house, only to be met by Nicole in the driveway. "Chris, how are you holding up?" I couldn't hold back my emotions. "I can't fully believe what I'm seeing in there. Mom and Uncle Mark are just in there with Grandpa, sitting with a dead body." Nicole's eyes widened, mirroring my shock. "What? Are you serious?" "Grandpa, he's dead, Nicole. He's dead." Tears welled up in my eyes as the reality of the situation hit me. Mom and Uncle Mark are in there acting like everything's normal. But Grandpa? He's gone. We can't just ignore this. Nicole looked at me with a mixture of concern and skepticism. "Chris, you're talking nonsense. Mom and Uncle Mark are taking good care of Grandpa." "Talking nonsense? Go in there and see for yourself if you don't believe me." Nicole hesitated, her eyes searching mine for some assurance. "Chris, I can't just believe something like this without proof." I choked out, "Well then go look, Nicole. I swear, you'll see. He's dead, and Mom and Uncle Mark have lost their minds. All right, let me grab the cake and I'll go inside and see what's going on. Just stay here, Chris, okay?" Nicole disappeared into the house. As the seconds ticked away, an uneasy tension settled. It wasn't long before Nicole reappeared, a perplexed expression on her face. "Well?" I asked her. "I don't know what you saw, Chris, but Grandpa is fine. They're celebrating his birthday and he seems genuinely happy. Grandpa is in there, alive, and he's having a slice of cake. Mom and Uncle Mark are taking real good care of him," Nicole explained. her words a stark contradiction to the unsettling reality I thought I had witnessed. Doubt gnawed at me as I tried to make sense of the conflicting accounts. Could I have misinterpreted the situation? Was my mind playing tricks on me? I don't believe you, Nicole. I think Mom and Uncle Mark gave you something to say. You're just covering up for them. Nicole's eyes widened with hurt. Chris, I'm not lying. Grandpa is alive, and they're taking care of him. You need to come inside and see for yourself. I shook my head, feeling a surge of frustration. No, I can't trust you. I need to see it with my own eyes. I walked over to the window and peered inside, only to be met with the haunting sight I had observed earlier. Grandpa's vacant eyes staring out the window, unblinking. Get lost, Nicole. Covering up for them while a dead man doesn't get a proper goodbye. They're probably cashing in his 401k since they found out he was dead. Sickos, I seethed, my frustration boiling over. Nicole, hurt and bewildered, took a step back. Chris, I swear, I don't know what's going on, but I'm not part of some cover-up. Mom and Uncle Mark genuinely believe Grandpa is alive. I climbed into my car, slamming the door shut, and started the engine. The confined space of the vehicle offered a fleeting sense of refuge from the disturbing scene I had just witnessed. As I locked the doors, Nicole rushed towards the car, her hands beating on the window, and her lips moved in a desperate attempt to convey something. In an attempt to drown out the turmoil in my mind, I cranked up the volume on the car's sound system. The music blared, creating a barrier between me and the unsettling reality I was desperately trying to escape. Nicole's pleas remained unheard as I sped away from the house. In the aftermath of the disturbing revelation, I couldn't bring myself to return to my apartment. The fear that Mom, Nicole, or Uncle Mark might come after me gripped my every thought. I decided to sever ties with that part of my life entirely. I settled my rent dues, relinquished my lease, and left my old life behind. I found refuge at a friend's place just outside of town. My friends, thankfully, believed my account of the eerie events, providing me with the support and understanding I desperately needed. I couldn't shake the paranoia that Mom, Nicole, or Uncle Mark might try to locate me. I couldn't help but wonder if Mom and the others were spinning a web of lies to the rest of our relatives, maintaining the illusion of a nice, normal family.